In this video, we're going to look at transforming sine and cosine functions, and I'm going to have an example that I'm going to graph. So when we get a sine or cosine function, there is four things we want to consider before graphing it. The first one is going to be this a, which is the amplitude. And so the absolute value of this number is going to be the amplitude. And the amplitude is just a vertical stretch or shrink. The second number right here, b, that's going to be used to find the period. So if you remember, the normal period of a sine or cosine function is 2 pi. So we're going to divide by this number here, b, to find what the period is going to be when we graph it. K is just a horizontal shift. You may also hear a phase shift. And finally, C is a vertical shift. So we're going to start off with the function 3 sine 2x minus pi over 2 minus 1. So when I'm graphing this function, the first thing I like to look at is the horizontal and the vertical shifts. So right here, so here we notice we have a horizontal shift of pi over 2, and you notice it's a minus here, so we're going to move it to the right, pi over 2. Then here we have a negative 1, so we're going to move this function down 1. And so we'll start with those when we're graphing it, and then finally right here we have a 2, and so 2 pi, so if you remember we have our division, 2 pi over our b is 2, 2 pi over 2 equals pi, so that means that the period of this function will just equal pi. And then we have 3, and the absolute value of 3 is 3. So this is going to have an amplitude of 3. So, so now we know kind of what our function is going to look like. So it's going to have an amplitude of 3, a period of pi. It's going to be moved to the right pi over 2 units, and it's going to move down 1. So let's graph this function. So if you remember, the sine function, it just looks like this. It's going to go up to 1, down to negative 1. It's going to start at the origin. Then it's going to go all the way to 2 pi. And it's going to go up to 1, then back down to 0, down to negative 1, and back to 0 again. So that is vaguely what the sine function will look like. And so now we just need to apply the different transformations to the function. So like I said, I like to start out with the horizontal and vertical shifts to find where the function is going to start. So for sine, we notice that it's going to move to the right pi over 2, and it's going to move down 1. So here, So it's going to move down 1. So the function is going to start at -1. And then let's put 0 up there. So it's going to start at -1, and then it's going to move to the right pi over 2 units. So it's going to start at pi over 2. So basically all this means is that the origin of the graph has basically moved down 1 to the right pi over 2. So we're going to start graphing from this point. And this will make more sense once I actually graph it. And so now looking at the amplitude, we know it has an amplitude of, so we have covered that. So the amplitude has an amplitude of 3. And what this means is that instead of going up to moving up 1 unit, it's going to move up 3 units. So instead of just moving up to 0, it's going to move all the way up to 2. Right, because that's 1, 2, 3. And it's also going to stretch down 3. So this is going to go down to -4. And then finally, we know that it has a period of pi, which basically means that we're going to graph this whole curve basically in the distance of pi. So we're going to start at pi over 2, and then pi over 2 plus pi is just going to be 3 pi over 2. So this is going to go up to 3 pi over 2, right? Because this is just going to be 1 pi. And then we're going to want to place 4 points, our 4 points here, so we know where to graph it. So the pi over 2, so that becomes pi over 4, then pi over 4 plus pi over 2 is just going to be 3 pi over 4. And then we're going to add another quarter pi, and that's just going to be pi. And then we're going to add another quarter pi, so that's going to be 5 pi over 4. And then finally, yeah, it's going to go up to 3 pi over 2. So here I just started at pi over 2, and since our period is pi, I just divide that into 4 parts. So now we know what our function is going to look like. And I'll, so we're going to start right here. And it's going to go, so at 3 pi over 4, it's going to hit its maximum. And it's just going to have the same curve. At pi, it's going to go back down to -1, because that's where we started out. And then for this last point, or for the next point, 5 pi over 4, it's going to go down 3 units to -4. And then finally, for 3 pi over 2, it's going to go back to 1. So our graph will look something like this. You could continue on this way if you wanted to. And so that's how you would graph a transformed sine or cosine function. With cosine, it's the exact same thing, but remember, instead of starting at the origin here, you're starting up at 1, and then you're going down like that.